Welcome to Playing Above the Line. We're a podcast that takes a peek into the daily lives of community and business leaders. Each week, we uncover different views of the path to growth, leadership, and achieving success. I'm Dennis Sheeran.
And I'm Alan Cave. Dennis and I are both shareholders at Hartman, Blackman & Kilgore. We're a full-service accounting and business consulting firm. As CPAs, we've had the unique opportunity to work with many different leaders and decided we wanted a way to share their incredible stories that we've learned along the way.
Today, we have Steve Novak on the show. Steve is the director for the strategic account channel at Billcom. In this episode, you'll get a look inside the major changes happening in the accounting industry in regards to technology and what exactly it's going to take to survive in this climate of change. Well, Alan, here we are, playing above the line.
Dennis, another great day, another great guest. Why don't you tell us who we have today?
Today, we have Steve Novak from Bill.com. So, Steve, welcome.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about Steve Novak.
Yeah, so I am a sales one of the strategic sales executives for Bill.com, covering the Southeast, working remotely out of Fairhope, Alabama, and have the good fortune of being able to deal with some of the top CPA firms in the Southeast, like Hartman, Blackman, and Kilgore. Your
career, you've been in and around the profession of accounting most of your career. What's that path been for you?
You know, it's I've always had an interest in financial software, so I started off early in my career with ADP here in Mobile, and it just kind of morphed into that. You know, more opportunities came available, the more research I did. I came in contact with CPA firms through that position and liked the environment, liked the subject matter, and just progressed on from Thomson Reuters through XCM Solutions and now Bill.com.
I know we were talking, and you went to Southern Miss for your college. What did you study when you were there?
Yeah, I had business administration with a major in marketing.
Okay. So were you always interested in the technology side of things? I mean, is that kind of how you gravitated toward doing what you're doing now, or is that something that kind of happened later in life?
Not really. I was more interested in in the social life of college while I was there.
Okay.
And
we can all admit to that one.
I think so.
So I was a late bloomer when it came to my academic interest. But once I got a taste of technology and particularly around finance automation and accounting, it was just something that was very interesting to me. I've actually pursuing an online accounting degree. So I'm very close to that, just to be able to have better and more relevant conversations with my clientele.
Well, so talk about technology and the way that it, from your perception anyway, the way that it's changed our profession, since that's kind of way in your wheelhouse. I mean, with the advent of artificial intelligence and machine learning and all those things, automation, I mean, how is that, from your perspective, how has that changed our business?
That's a great question. I think it's changed a lot and is continuing to change, and that change is happening very rapidly. When I first started, it was more about just processing information, using the processing power of a computer to do calculations and then output reports and forms. And now we were at a point where now it's automating a lot of the processes, and it's continuing. You're seeing artificial intelligence, machine learning, all of the repetitive, recurring, mundane tasks are being automated. And what that's done is, number one, it's eliminated a lot of the cost out of a CPA firm or a finance department. And then it's also elevated the profession of an accountant and a CPA to much more of an advisory role, much more analysis. We've gone from where an accountant was maybe a historian, and then now they're looking forward, more planning and more analysis. So you're seeing the level of services that are provided rise more from just compliance and reporting.
I like the description of historian. Having been around this profession for 30-something years, that still exists in many areas, and technology, the rate of change in technology will never be as slow as it is today. And something like Bill.com is reflective of that. We as a firm have used it internally for 5 years, I know, maybe 6. Had used it with a soccer club for probably 8 or 9. And I've watched it change over time, and the next iteration is coming. And that technology adoption is so key for business and the business of an accounting firm as well. What do you see coming down the road for business in general in terms of technology, say, in the next year?
Yeah, I think you're going to see artificial intelligence and the machine learning take a leap where it's much more practical. Right now, it's been up until recently, it's been very hyped up. I think the hype was ahead of the actual capabilities of it. But with the Bill.com new release of the intelligent virtual assistant, you're seeing just from an accounting perspective and processing a bill and coding a bill, that's all automated now. So I think even it's Xero that has coined the phrase codeless accounting. And all that means is you don't need a human being coding to an expense account. The machine learns it and then automatically codes it. Then there are automated approvals that meet business rules and then automatically sync with the general ledger of the particular company's owns. So what you see is, a reduction in human resources needed to do those types of tasks internally. And then you're also seeing on the accounting CPA firm side of the house, the ability to provide those services at scale and at a more cost-effective rate than those companies can do on their own. I don't know if you guys probably saw it, but just the other day, Walmart outsourced their accounting department in Charlotte. That 600 people are being laid off, but that's only because the technology is available to automate that. There's tools out there that will automate reconciliations, automate journal entries at the scale of a Walmart, a global organization. And so you don't need someone doing that. What that translates to is higher quality financial statements, doing reconciliations before the close. That's a novel idea.
Concept.
Yeah. Right. So you're seeing those kinds of things. Going back to your previous question too, Alan, about the impact on CPA firms, I think where we are because of that technology is an inflection point between the operating objectives of a CPA firm and the revenue objectives of a CPA firm. So there's been a lot of talk about value billing over the last couple of years, but you still have a lot of firms out there, majority of firms, they're still hourly billing. But as you drive those efficiencies, by definition, you're reducing the time that it takes to produce your end product, which means you're also now reducing your revenue. So there's the value billing that issue is going to be forced, and because of the technology. And I think CPA firms need to be on that sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I agree with you. And we're in the middle of that project right now because we've been talking about it for a couple of years. And before the end of this year, we will no longer keep time to bill clients, is how we're phrasing it, and looking at changing the value equation to enhance conversations with clients. So let's step back for a second and tell us a little bit more about Bill.com and what Bill.com does.
Right. Bill.com at its simplest form makes it easy for businesses to conduct business, makes it easier for them to get paid and to pay their bills by automating the accounts payable and the accounts receivable process and the payment piece of it. We're still at a point where, the majority of payments in the business realm are made via paper checks. Bill.com is changing that by automated ACH payments, virtual card payments, and really streamlining that whole process. Whenever I talk to firms about whether or not they should use Bill.com or whether or not they should outsource to a CPA firm, I said, look, no company ever built a strategic advantage because they were the best bill processor and best accounting department. So you need to automate what you can, outsource the rest of it.
So along that same line, you see a lot of, and you mentioned it in your kind of self-intro, that you see a lot of CPA firms and you work with a lot of firms, 40-something thousand firms out there in the country. And the CEO of our professional organization, Barry, what's his?
Melanson.
Sorry, I drew a blank there. That's awful. Anyway, so Barry says that there are two types of firms. One that embraces technology and is going to survive, and then the others are going to get bought or go away or get rolled up because they kind of have their heads in the sand and that kind of thing. So what are you seeing in that regard out there with the firms you work for? Obviously, your firms are progressive because they're working with you and Bill.com, but do you see the majority of firms kind of embracing this technology and the changes that have to be made, or some still resistant?
Some still resistant. There's no doubt about it. If you I work within the top 400 firms in the country, and if you look at the very top 1 through 25, we look at these numbers a lot. Highly aggressive in adopting new technologies. You drop down from there, and it just progressively gets less and less, especially when you get down into the 101 to top 200 firms. And that's kind of shocking, but the numbers don't lie. We see that, and we're really making a push in there. And a lot of it has to do with that conflict between the revenue objectives and their operational objectives. Firms, I literally have had members of a firm ask me, "That's great. You're going to save us 50% of the time to process AP. What am I going to do to make up the 50% of lost hours?" And it's that type of thinking that they have to get out of. And to your point about Mr. Melanson's statement that you're either going to adopt technology and progress or get bought or go away, I think you will see we're already seeing a heightened level of mergers and acquisitions within the industry right now. I think that's going to continue to increase. You have this phenomenon out there of what I refer to as the pure plays. It's the firms that aren't CPA firms, and all they do is provide outsourced client accounting services. Their best practice images, they've got their tech stacks are standardized, their processes are standardized, they're disciplined to turn down customers that don't fit their model. And I think that is a very valuable business right now, because these firms that have lagged behind, that have the financial resources, those are going to be what you see get acquired first. And then you'll see other firms merge, I think, to get that capability. We've already seen it. There's multiple examples out there of it.
When I was listening to you describe that, agility has never been something that was related to how a firm operates. Tradition, on the other hand, has been at the forefront of how a firm operates. In this day and age, if you lack the agility, you're at risk. And it's not just your business of your firm. It's how you're serving your customers and what you're doing for them. Because we need to be at the forefront of helping our businesses be more successful in their operations. And we have to know that in 5 years, technology will totally change the back part of the house.
Yeah, I couldn't have said that any better, Dennis. I think in addition to tradition, you've got the organizational structure of a CPA firm is somewhat prohibitive to agility and quick decision making. Mm-hmm. When you're a limited partnership and you basically have 6 to 20 or however many equity partners, it's not like you're the CEO or the head of the general manager of a business unit, and you set the strategy and everybody else has to go execute. And if they resist, then they need to find another job. It's not like that in a CPA firm. It's very much consensus, and consensus by its very nature slows down decision-making process.
Yeah, it all boils down to a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. And so, those that have that fixed mindset, the most dangerous words are, "we've always done it that way." So right. I think that's what will catch a lot of firms kind of off guard. So let's switch gears just a minute. So your first job was a deckhand on a shrimp boat. Yeah. So how was that? What'd you learn from that? Yeah, I'm sure that you learned all kind of life lessons.
I learned I wanted to get a college degree and not do that anymore. Actually, that was probably one of the funnest jobs I ever had. I was fresh out of 9th grade and didn't even have my driver's license yet.
You were a young deckhand.
Yep. Yeah. And it was a 51-foot boat. It was a day boat. And so I didn't have my driver's license. And my father would get up at 3 a.m. and literally drive me across town to make that work. And I think when you calculated the hours out and what I was making, I think I was making about 50 cents an hour at that time. So, but yeah, you learn a lot of lessons. You learned about hard work, the value of hard work, and being on a team. And then just the example, it was a husband and wife team that were elderly, and seeing the work ethic of those two individuals just it was just beyond impressive. It was admirable. What they did to make that business run was just something that I'll never forget.
So in your bio, you say that one of your greatest accomplishments is being able to maintain a professional career while still residing in Fairhope. Bill.com is located in Palo Alto. That's their right. Home headquarters, right? But That's you live in Fairhope. So you're a remote worker.
That's right.
I'm sure that is nice because it does allow you to live on the Eastern Shore. But at the same time, I would think that there would be some challenges and that kind of thing. Self-motivation is one, Yeah. So how does that look for you on a daily basis? What does your day look like? How do you kind of keep yourself motivated to get up and go out and do what you got to do?
Yeah, well, comp plans, if they're designed right, provide all the motivation you need. So
Good point. Okay.
So, being in sales, you're only as good as your last month. So that motivation's there. Plus, if you have a natural work ethic and you want to provide a good product to your employer, you're self-motivated. And I find myself probably more productive working out of my home than when I do go to the home office, because there's, just the water cooler talk. People, and especially if you're remote and you go into the office, everybody's glad to see you. They want to come talk and catch up. So, but the challenge is not having that social interaction. That's the biggest challenge for me. And then having, when the boys were younger, them not realizing that, Daddy has a real job, even though I'm in the front office and, and I can't go out and throw the football at 10:30 in the morning. So that was a challenge. Yeah, to me, just the lack of the social interaction, the camaraderie you get from being in an office is what I miss from that. But my wife traveled a lot, moved around a lot when she was a child. And we made a conscious decision early on that we weren't going to do that. And so it's required me to be very proactive in my career. Nobody's ever called me and said, hey, we're looking for enterprise software sales representatives in Fairhope, Alabama.
Right.
Yeah. And but it's gotten a lot easier. It was very difficult back even 10 years ago. And Bill.com even, is just moving to a remote workforce. I was one of the first ones hired to work remotely along with 3 other colleagues.
Wow. So you talk about the social interaction challenges. What do you do to overcome those or to kind of address those?
Yeah. So, now with technology like Zoom and WebEx, travel is less of a requirement, although I still do travel a lot and I enjoy that part of the job within reason. You have your people that you know who to go to for certain answers and things. And then same thing, it's just all done over the phone. It's not sitting side by side at a desk bouncing ideas off. So there's still a lot of interaction. It's just not physical interaction.
I got one other question thinking about it, what you're doing remote, working in a profession that obviously that Alan and I are connected to. You get to have the opportunity to influence, and I talked a little bit about this before the show, influence a profession, impact a profession. What's that like for you?
Yeah, that's if I had to pick the second proudest thing I had in my profession, it would be that people take me seriously in a profession like a certified public accountant, to where I can influence. It's not about selling them Bill.com. It's about talking about best practices for a client accounting service practice line, the different technologies that are unrelated to Bill.com but are all part of the ecosystem, and really, elevating the conversation from a vendor to a buyer to a peer-to-peer relationship, and that is very, very rewarding professionally.
Well, keep at the influence, please.
Yeah, really, that's true. So, speaking of influences, do you have a mentor? Do you have anybody in your life who's made a really positive impact on your either professional career or your personal life at all?
I'd have to go back to my father, and I know that sounds cliched, but he was just such a no-nonsense guy. He's a World War II frontline veteran, and just didn't let any obstacle get in his way, didn't complain about anything, taught me that it's not, don't spend a second of time on things that you can't influence or change. Only focus on what you can do yourself and change. And then just seeing the work ethic that he had. I could go on forever, the countless examples of him. I mean, he just, we had hardwood floors in our house growing up, and he hand sanded the entire floors and revarnished them with no machine, nothing except a piece of 2x4 and sandpaper around it. And I thank God I was too young to help him at that time, but I remember it vividly. So that would be the biggest influence. There's the old saying, I can't remember it exactly, but 90% of success is hard work, and the other 10% is brains. So I got the very short on that 10%, but I can handle the 90%.
I love that. My dad was a World War II vet as well, and that story, it rings true. I can remember him sanding floors. It's funny. I can remember him doing renovations in the house, and it's like, that looks so fun.
Yeah.
But then I realized later
Yeah.
that he was doing that, not me. Yeah. So looking at some of your outside interests there, I see some cooking. I want you and Alan to have a cooking recipe challenge here in a second. I think we all love to cook, but reading and deep sea fishing. So first, tell me about the deep sea fishing. What do you like to do, and how often do you get to do it?
Yeah, I don't get to do it as often as I did, but growing up in Pascagoula, Mississippi, and that was one of the things. It was just natural for me to work on a shrimp boat because I was always on a boat fishing. Mm-hmm. Don't get to do that as much often, but I am going on a red snapper trip this Sunday and try to get out 3 or 4 times a year during this short snapper season mm-hmm. that we have. So, and then any chance I can get to go speckled trout fishing back home or down in Louisiana, I don't miss those either.
That's great. So what are you reading right now?
I just the Brad Thor book just came out today, so I'd pre-purchased it, and I'm very much the spy genre.
Okay.
So starting very early, even back in college, reading Tom Clancy, every one of his books, every one of Vince Flynn's books, and all of his ghostwriters since then. Daniel Silva. Mark Greaney has the next Gray Man book will be coming out in a couple of weeks. So I try to read, and especially when I'm on a plane. And these books now, they're all about 400 pages, and you can knock one out in a cross-country flight. So,
you read faster than me. That's all I can tell you, buddy.
I usually read probably 5 or 6 books a month.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, that is. Well, Steve, this has been great. We really appreciate your insights into what's going on in the industry. It's it was a great conversation. We appreciate you coming. One last question before you leave us, and Dennis, this is a new one, so I'm going to see run this up the flagpole and see what happens.
The jet was delivered to its new buyer last week, so that's gone.
You made me you didn't like the jet question, so I had to leave that one. But so Steve, if you walk out and go into your car and you see a suitcase on the ground and you pick it up and you open it up and there's $1 million, the obvious answer I know would be you would turn it into the authorities and see if you can find the rightful owner. But if you were the proud owner of $1 million, what's the first thing that you would do?
$1 million.
Play money, mad money, just
Oh, there's no doubt. It would be a 31-foot regulator with twin 350s on it and a tuna tower.
There you go.
I like it. Party. That's great. That's great.
That's great.
All right. Well, Steve, this has been great. Thanks.
Steve.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate you having me.
If you're interested in learning more, check out Bill.com. That's BILL.com, or connect to Steve using the links in the show notes. Well, thanks for listening to our podcast today. To never miss an episode, subscribe to Playing Above the Line at iTunes and anywhere else you get your podcast. And be sure to leave us a rating. We'd love to know what you think about our show.
To contact us or to stay connected, follow us on social media at HBKCPAS on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Thanks for listening.